In an age of deception and media manipulation, voices come forth from the trenches.
Discernment is the keystone of truth. We are in a war to bring these truths to the masses. Critical thinking is the sword, and due diligence is the shield. Each of us bring different tools to the fight, but we all fight for the same cause.
As long as one person lives in darkness, it is our responsibility to tell other people.
This is where the work gets done, where we engage in hand-to-hand combat with ideas on the battlefield of mind. This is where every war is fought, and where they're won or lost by asking, what's really going on?
Good evening, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you may be, and welcome to our very first show. I am Infinity Watch, and I am joined by Tiffany M., Chad Lilly, and Truth Undenied, and we are coming to you live from the trenches. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a true honor and pleasure to be here tonight, and I am very glad that you are with us as we kickstart our very first show. The main topic of our show tonight is going to be titled Tools of the Psy-War, and on the micro and mini level. And before we get to the main topic, I'd just like to give a few bullet points about what our show is going to be about ongoing, and also each individual member of the show is going to say a little bit about themselves as far as how they came into the community, what they want to do with the show, what they envision, what they bring to the table, and such. So basically our show is going to cover a variety of styles and topics, from set topics such as tonight that the four of us will be touching upon and talking in depth about, to having interviews with people, some bigger channels, some people outside of the community that bring great content and information, people who write books, that do movies, do videos, do any type of art. It will vary, and we would love to have people on and they can showcase their content and talk more in depth. We also want to cover breaking events. If there's a false flag or a hoax going on that's kind of hot and it's really a very strong topic, then we would like to cover that in depth and actually do live breakdowns on the show, kind of like from a researcher point of view. And we would also like to bring in people from the chat or other people who might see some things that we may not necessarily see, and we can do live breakdowns together. I think that's a great way to show people how research is done for those who are not too aware of it but are interested. And then also every now and then we would like to have a free open mic night and just put the link to the Hangout, and whoever gets in fits in, and we'll just have a 2-hour talk on whatever topics anybody wants to bring up. I would definitely like to get the whole community involved on different shows at different times. So basically, that is our show in a nutshell. We're looking to be very fluid, and we're not looking to have one particular style, but definitely have some structure. And again, we're not reinventing the wheel or anything like that, but we would definitely like to bring some new content to the table and a fresh perspective, and have some fun. So without any further ado, I would like to introduce Tiffany M.
Hi, you guys. Thank you. So to start, I guess the way I stumbled upon researching and the truth movement would be about 9 years ago, and it was mainly through vaccinations and autism. I've always been an inquisitive mind and somebody who takes a couple looks at things and questions everything and goes about life and life's topics with more whys than just okays. And so, yeah, about 9 years ago, I had a girlfriend who had a son, and her husband passed away, and when her son was very little. And as he was getting older, he was having problems with his development, and coincidentally, as it turned out, he wound up with autism. And being that her husband passed, I kind of stepped in and played the role of her support system when she was going through the diagnosis process and everything. So with that is when the question arose, how did he go from being such a healthy, alert child to being this withdrawn, lost, just absent person, little baby? And so that then brought me into the world of vaccination injury and toxins in our environment, in our foods, in our bodies, and our antibiotics, and that snowballed into a whole lot of other things. Then, as it turns out, about 3 years after that, I gave birth to my younger son. And shortly after he received his DTP vaccination, immediately that day I saw a reaction from him. Now, people are probably wondering, being that I had been versed on vaccinations, why did I vaccinate him? That's a topic for a whole show someday. But it wasn't by choice. And unfortunately, the result was what I feared. And so that really motivated me to look further and dig deeper, and that was my beginning in really researching the government, current events, past events, and everything in between. So I took a break for a while, really focused on my son with his autism, and then Sandy Hook happened. And I immediately noticed the inconsistencies in the official story, the behavior of parents. But what really grabbed my attention, what really alerted me and alarmed me, was the dialogue from the get-go about Adam Lanza being on the spectrum, and about his mother being a so-called irresponsible parent who was a prepper and a gun nut. And that, to me, just opened my eyes and made me realize there is an agenda to this. Because at the time I was well versed on the vaccination injury compensation program, and I was well versed on how little resources parents had at that time for children who were on the spectrum. And all of this just really resonated with me in a way that I realized how scary and how directed our world is by the government and by financial motivations, power-grabbing motivations, just so many different things. So Sandy Hook was really the fire under my seat. In recent times, I recently, within the past maybe 7 months, discovered groups of researchers online via Facebook. I joined the Sandy Hook hoax group, where I met a lot of wonderful people, became great friends with a handful of them, Tony Mead and a few of the other researchers, and they then invited me into the Sandy Hook Research Google Plus group, where I've expanded this network and friendships to all of you guys here tonight, and a great number of other people. So that was kind of my beginning, and so basically what I'm hoping to do, my approach to the research has always been more, I'm going to call it conservative. I really don't like to take stipulation and turn it into fact. I am a big digger. I like court documents. I like research. I like to do all the boring stuff. And so I'm hoping to kind of bring the more factual-based angle to this, and along with have an outlet to share some of my personal stories from personal experiences with people, because they relate and they need to be told, and people need to learn and they need to educate themselves on our constitutional rights, on our local laws, through our cities and our counties and our states. They need to understand how power is misused and the consequences that can have on you as an individual, depending on where you live. And mostly just I want to hopefully give researchers a different reputation in the communities. I'm tired. I'm so tired of hearing us called domestic terrorists and crazies and delusional and all these names and stupid and just I'm really tired of that. There's a lot of good people who all have good intent within our community, and I want to try and set a precedence of showing that we are serious about this. We all have our personal reasons and investments in it, and I want to try to hopefully start a new way of being represented to others and our haters, for lack of better word. Haters gonna hate. No, but I just and I'm doing a great job of that so far, let me tell you. But no, that's what I want. I just I would like us to be taken more seriously, but not too seriously, because I'm kind of a goofy girl, but it's just I want to debunk the debunkers. Let's put it that way. And I want and I also, what else I want to do? I also want to expose a lot of the disinfo that's put out there about us. There's a lot of people out there who are making things up about researchers, and they're acting and they're behaving exactly how they claim we are and what they're fighting against. So, which is a caveat into tonight's topic, but that's very important to me too. I've had a lot of personal attacks. Well, not a lot, but I've had a couple bad ones where pictures of my children were put online. I had people encouraging others to call my local police department because I had a huge amount of weapons in my home, and I was training my autistic 5-year-old to be the next Adam Lanza. I had one individual actually call a former employer of mine. This individual has been pretty vocal lately on YouTube. And he actually called a former employer of mine and said, I was a Sandy Hook hoaxer who is spreading, horrible, evil lies about the murdered children. And, can you believe that somebody would do this, especially somebody who you used to work with? I mean, to me, that's just stalking. It's sick. And so I want to kind of put a caboose on as much of that as possible, if it's possible. Probably not completely, but at least help people become aware of the tactics of these trolls and these stalkers, because that's what they are, and help them learn how to combat these things online and in threads and whatnot, because there's definitely a cookie cutter formula they use, and it's pretty easy to shut them up once you figure it out. I mean, so yeah, that's my that's my get down.
Fun. Right on.
Alright.
How about you, Truth? How is it that you got into this crazy world of wondering what's really going on?
Well, the thing is, I'm pretty young. I'm 28 years old. But like Tiffany said, I've been into this, 8, 9, 10 years, really. And even before that, it started because I was always kind of the outsider as a kid. I never quite fit in with everybody, and I didn't use it to be bummed about or anything. I just found that my interests were different than most people I grew up with. And by the time I was in high school, I started to understand how the structure worked against us, how it was all pointless indoctrination, and I was very anti-American at that time in my life. But, being young, I didn't really understand the full picture. I dealt with, as a skateboarder, I dealt with police on a regular basis and was treated pretty poorly by them, as most skateboarders are. And, we kind of have this negative image of us as a bunch of punk little kids that just want to destroy things. And for somewhat of that is true. But so I got to see kind of the underbelly of that. I hung out with a lot of people I probably shouldn't have. I got into a lot of things I shouldn't have. But I saw a part of society that was totally against the grain, so to speak, of what we, are told to be and how we're programmed to be, as I like to say. And beyond that, in high school, I ran into this woman who used to speak out at this coffee shop, and she would gather crowds of 30 to 50 people anytime she spoke. I mean, just very intelligent woman. She was a political science PhD and spoke heavily against the Freemasons and basically about their entire agenda. And I, being probably 15 years old at the time, I was really like, I had never heard of it. And I got heavily involved myself in looking into the Freemasons. And then further on beyond that, by the time I'm 18 or so, I'm just totally distraught with everything. I was detached and withdrawn on a lot of drugs and things. And, somewhat because I couldn't quite relate to the world as everyone else saw it. Nobody else seemed to see what I was seeing and how it was all just a big show, a big phony fake show, as some people like to say. And, about the time of 9/11, I just I watched it happen, and, I was, I think, 9th grade, and it really just, I don't know, something never felt right. And I kind of got into other things. I looked at, of course, I'm sure a lot of us saw the Zeitgeist movie and all that, and, it was kind of a big thing back then. And that kind of really got me sparked at going onto the internet. And, a little while after that, YouTube came along, and I watched a lot of videos on random things. It was mostly geoengineering and HARP and stuff like that. And I found people like Dutch Sense who, I used to go to his website and just read for as much as I could for hours on end through his miles of pages of just information regarding geoengineering and chemtrails and HARP and things like that. But I got heavily involved in trying to speak out against chemtrails, and as I grew as a person, really within the past few years, that was always my main topic. And then I felt like that was the one thing I could reach people, because I always said, all you've got to do is observe the sky and you'll notice that something's not right. And that's kind of the planting the seed, because you can scream facts at somebody all day long, and they're never going to listen to you until they want to listen. It's better to try to get them to ask questions. And, it took me a long time to learn that. I was a very angry, younger person, and did a lot of really terrible things. And I learned throughout the time that the only way I was ever going to affect anything positively was by being more positive myself. And, now in the past 2 years, I started this channel, and I finally said, well, I'm going to start making videos and do what I can. And I've, over a little over 2 years now, I'm up to around 3,000 subscribers, and I never even thought that was a possibility. And still, it's a drop in the hat to other people. But the fact that I have some tiniest soapbox of a platform, that some people listen to me, and that some people, give me a lot of really kind things, and that keeps me to continue on. And I'm still a lone wolf, and I think all of us were lone wolves until really about the new year, when everybody started utilizing Google Hangout as a tool. And, that to me has brought me out of kind of being isolated, being more compartmentalized, and, to spread me out. And I've met so many people that I talked through comments and interacted with them through voice and video in some cases, and it's just amazing to me now that we actually have some kind of leverage there. And I think that's exactly how we got to this point. When Infinity Watch hit me up a little over a month ago asking about this show that we're doing tonight, and I'm so excited that we have come full circle here, and now we're at a point that we can actually move forward. We can make a difference. And like Tiffany said, be taken seriously, but not too seriously. And, on that note, I'm going to pass it on to Chad.
Since I was a child, I always knew the world was messed up. But as a child, I didn't understand why. And I just figured, well, I'm a kid, and all this stuff that makes no sense to me when I grow up, it will, because, adults are in charge and they're running stuff, and they know what they're doing. And then, as I got a little older and quickly realized the adults didn't know what they were doing either. And something was very wrong with the world, even though I was now a quote-unquote adult, paying my bills, living in my own place, doing the adult things. Okay, this is it, this is life. But I still knew there was something very wrong with the world, and that that restless feeling prompted me to start searching early on. Into world religions, into witchcraft, into metaphysics, into science, into anything and everything that I thought might have some answers in it, some way to answer the question of why is the world so messed up? What is in this, and what's wrong here? And ultimately, now that I really think about it, to answer that ultimate question, the one I'm always asking, what is going on here? And that's my whole interest in any of this, is just to understand what's going on here and then to be able to say what I see. But growing up, Waco happened. That was my first real kick in the pants of, wait a minute, okay, I knew something was wrong before that, but now I see it looks like what's wrong here is the government. So that got me along that path, and of course everything that's happened since, all the way up past 9/11, all the way into Sandy Hook. When Sandy Hook happened, I knew the world was already way messed up. I knew it was very, very wrong, or I thought I did. And then when Sandy Hook happened, I realized that it was me that was wrong. The world is much worse than I even imagined. And that's where we are now, where all of us out there are feeling this need, our inner compulsion to do what we can to help. And that's what I'm here to do, in any way I can, whether it's with research, whether it's ability, insight, just commentary, any piece to the puzzle that I can offer. I am more than happy to do that, because I think it's going to take all of us to ever answer that question of what's really going on here.
Thank you guys for that. And for me, first time I realized something was amiss had to be in the late 80s. It was George Bush Sr., George G.H.W. Bush, and he went down into Panama and he basically strong-armed Noriega. And at that point there, I realized that something here is not right. I kind of knew the politics behind it already. I was just following politics, and I knew that there was something dirty going on, something tied to the drug trafficking and to weapons. And ever since then, I've always been skeptical of the government and how they operate. I kind of was introduced to the term Illuminati and such, not so much by the internet. It was actually before that. It was just from the street, hanging out on the street and hearing street talk and such. And the Illuminati was thrown around, and people used to talk about this guy called Bill Cooper and this book, Behold the Pale Horse. And you got to read it, you got to check it out and stuff like that. So I kind of got indoctrinated somewhat that way. And then sure enough, 9/11 happened. And it really blindsided me. I'm from New York City, so it hit home directly, and it was a really traumatic time, and there was a lot of anger in the air, fear. And in the beginning, I really didn't question 9/11 because it was just so overwhelming, just dealing with the catastrophe itself from a physical point of view. But then 2-3 years after that, a lot of questions started coming up, and I started to really question it. And then sooner or later, YouTube came about. And I found a whole network, the 9/11 quote-unquote truth community in the early days. And that's when Alex Jones was out, and, Bill Cooper was already considered an old-timer, and he had just got murdered, by the way, after 9/11. So there was so many questions coming up, and, we just started a community of people asking things, and we could watch videos and, communicate in the comment sections and agree, disagree, debate, whatever the case may be. And then after the 9/11 truth movement, I got into the zeitgeist. I was really fond of that documentary. You know, it's nothing is perfect, of course, but there was definitely a lot of tenets and points that I agreed with, particularly with the Venus Project. And I kind of took a break from the whole conspiracy thing. I was always a silent ninja. I never put up any videos. I would just, comment here or there. Um, there was no real strong community yet. It certainly wasn't this type of platform whatsoever. It wasn't even Google Plus yet. And I kind of, fell back from the whole event skeptic community and way of thought, actually. Just kind of went back into the, the modern day humdrum world until Boston happened. When Boston Marathon happened, that really hit me hard. Even though when Sandy Hook happened prior to that, I was under the impression of Sandy Hook in the beginning that it was some type of satanic ritual, child sacrifice thing. I was not aware that nobody died yet. I really didn't do any research into it. Just my own little conspiracy button hit off and said, "Oh, this is a sacrifice." Because I'm also big into the occultic numerology aspect, the symbolism point of view in this community as well. But when Boston happened, it really clicked on me. I said, "This shit is ridiculous. Come on, man. These guys are crisis actors, patsies. Something's not right at all." And I immediately got back into social media using Twitter because I threw out my Facebook account years ago. So I was kind of like a Facebook exile for a while. And I was on Twitter, and it was just amazing how when Boston bombing happened and people were doing videos on YouTube and it was live time and we were actually 2 steps ahead of the mainstream media on Twitter. We were killing them. Every time they would put out something, we would automatically come back with a rebuke, and then they had to come back. It was a very interesting dynamic that was never done before. It was actually unprecedented at the time. And then I started finding other channels. There was Jeff C, there was Red Pill, there was PK, there was a whole bunch of other people that were just coming about at that time, and Max Malone and Max Resistance, and all these other channels that were just putting up content after content after content. And then sure enough, Google Plus came around, and at first, like a lot of people, I was like, I don't want to do Google Plus. I kind of held out. But then I just jumped on board, and I have to say, it's not perfect, but we do get scroogled a lot. But I do like the platform very much for the fact that we can have chats like this, and we can have communities. And, before we were just regulated to commenting in the comment section, and we could never really talk like this on a mass level. And plus having a thing like Twitter, which for me is great for up-to-date information in live time. So when you connect all these mediums together, it's quite a powerful tool. And, as I've been around the community as it is now for a little while, following We'll Do It Live and other channels like that. And I decided to say, you know what? I kind of want to step my game up and join the community and be more vocal. And I started coming on Hangouts with Max Malone, with Robert J. Morris on Save the Silly Humans, and recently with Jeff C. on We'll Do It Live. And, I'm meeting more people, and we're talking almost every other day to each other, sharing things, laughing, being mad, whatever the case may be, because there's a lot of crap going on in the world that's not pretty. We tend to make jokes of it to lighten it, but at the same time, it is very serious. I kind of prefer more of a geopolitical point of view, and I really enjoy doing research behind the scenes, especially when it comes to false flags and hoaxes, to see the forensics, so to speak. And I figured, you know what, I wanted to gather a few people together that shared similar interests, but from different points of view. We may not agree on every single topic, but I think that's sometimes healthy. I don't mind a debate as long as it's civil and respectful. That's part of the process. We learn. And I'm glad that I was able to get the 3 of you guys with me. And I think that this is a very great start, and it is definitely needed in the community, and it's just another voice. And hopefully we can inspire others that are thinking about this or have no idea about this. And we can grow, because I feel that we can only grow more and more. And I'm looking forward to future shows. I'm looking forward to other people's shows. I'm looking forward to new people. I'm looking forward to it all. And, we have to get ourselves together because things are not getting better, that's for sure. Whether it's the dollar crashing, whether it's natural events such as weather modification, whether it's the issues going on with Ukraine, Israel, the Middle East, Africa, the whole globe, the whole quote-unquote New World Order coming up. I think it's important the more voices we have together in a solid, cohesive unit. And everyone has a different approach. We all come from different angles. We have different touches. And I think that's great. The diversity I'm seeing is excellent. I want to see the diversity grow more. And with that, I would like to pass the mic back to Tiffany as we go into our main topic tonight. Thank you.
Tiffany's muted there. She'll be back with us in just a second, I'm sure. Especially, what you're saying, if we're correct on tonight's show topic as far as there being an organized opposition of people who are out there doing these bag of dirty tricks against people who are speaking their mind, then how much more important is it for people who are honest and who are seeking clarity rather than confusion? How important it is for them to get together and for them to organize and to be willing to speak about it.
Right, and sorry you guys, I was having mute button problems. Which I'm sure a lot of people wish I had most of the time, but I fixed it. So, yeah, and that's a good point. And, the thing that I've been hearing a lot of lately is the word brainwash and the word domestic terrorists. And, I find these words to be not necessarily as offensive as I think the people using them would like them to be, as more telling. Because, when you think about that and you take a look at either side of the fence, okay, and you say brainwash, okay, we might say they're brainwashed. They are saying we're brainwashed, but really what's going on here? And it's interesting when you take a look at the angle that maybe, or the scrutiny, or that we're viewed with, and you apply it in the other way. And you have to sit in here and go, well, wait a second, how do we know that they're not brainwashed? Because they are, in my opinion. And this kind of caveats into another article I read recently, which talks about a study that they did at a local university, where they took 100 students, and these researchers and professors of psychology, what they did was they individually interviewed each one of these students with the intent of getting them to confess to a crime that they didn't commit. Now, prior to this study, they had the names of these individuals. They had to fill out a questionnaire, and they contacted somebody closely either related to them or a friend of theirs, and got a couple of personal details, whether it be what elementary school they went to, or hobbies, or where they used to live. And what these people did, and this is so crazy, but with 100% success rate, or 100 or 99% success rate, they managed to get each and every single one of these people to admit to a violent crime that they committed when they were younger. And the thing that was even more interesting is a lot of these people elaborated on the story and talked about it like they were there, and explained why they did this thing. It was something along the lines of attacking somebody for some reason on the playground or walking home from school. And that just goes to show how easily our minds are manipulated and convinced, and the energy that is put out there, how strong it is to mislead us. So in reading all my reading that I do every day, I also came across a while ago a few articles on that guy who was just arrested in Ohio, Christopher Cornell. Not the lead singer of Soundgarden, okay? Which is actually why I read the article, I'm not gonna lie. I was like, what? I was like, what the heck? No, I'm just kidding. But no, it did cross my mind for a second. But so he's this kid out in Ohio. He's in his early 20s, or he might just be like 20, who was recently arrested by the FBI for the conspiracy to commit terrorism on the federal building. I believe he was talking about planning on blowing it up. And then as politicians and government workers were running and fleeing from this building, he was then going to gun them down. who he shared these plans with a FBI informant over the course of some time. Now, in this article that I had read, which was kind of older, it was back from January, the parents of this individual were saying how he was coerced into doing this by the FBI informant, that these weren't his own thoughts or ideas. Since this article, this one in particular, has been put out, this kid actually was dumb enough to call in, or have a local radio station somehow called him, where he gave all kinds of incriminating statements. He was he recently joined the Muslim faith, which has very little, if anything, to do with this. But he expressed this, how ISIS, how they were going to accept these acts of terrorism from him, and so on. So he pretty much put the nail in the coffin for himself. But what this article stated, which was interesting, was, this boy's father was saying how he was a peace-loving mama's boy. And he didn't possibly have the means to carry out this kind of attack. Now, when he was arrested, though, he did have 2 AR-15s and several hundred rounds of ammo. But this story wouldn't be the first time the FBI would be under scrutiny because of an informant-led terrorist arrest. So being a arrest made of an individual where the informant was actually the one who was the brains behind the plan that these individuals were arrested for. So further examples, there were, I think it was 2004, 8 anarchists who plotted to blow up a bridge in the Canoga County National Park near Cleveland. And so when that case got to court, it was revealed that one person who led the brainstorming of the targets, cased the bridges that they were talking about blowing up, pushed the rest of the group to buy C4 military-grade explosives, provided contacts to get weapons, gave them money for the weapons, and told them how to basically mastermind this plan, because they were then on the hook for these weapons. The sole individual responsible for all of that was the informant in that particular case. There was also another case around the same time. There's another individual, his name was Jaharwar Sergey, and he was charged with trying to blow up a subway station in New York City. Now, his attorney said that he was set up because he had no prior knowledge of explosives. He didn't have any type of timetable or pre-planning for this particular crime. And not only that, but it was also, it's kind of funny, but it was also said that he told the informant that he would have to talk to his mother and get permission before he could carry out any of these plans of terrorism. It was at that point the FBI stepped in and arrested him. And then just another case to reference, because I like my facts and figures here. There's also a case of, which is a little bit more publicized, of the Newburgh Four. And these guys were 4 African-American Muslims who had, they were charged with trying to blow up a New York synagogue with car bombs and then carry out some other attacks with weapons and whatnot. Now,
Yeah, I remember that. Excuse me.
yeah, and in this case, which is so interesting, they were each offered by the informant something along the lines of $250,000 apiece to help with the bombings, and then they were offered vacations and cars. And finally, these guys, all of whom were very poverty-stricken, they caved. And that's when the FBI stepped in and arrested them all. Now, the thing that makes this case so interesting is the judge that actually sentenced them stated, and to quote, this is what he said: "Nothing that any of these men did was the product of any individual motivation on their part." And then this judge went on to say, "It is beyond question that government created the crime here." And so my question with all this mouthful is, number one, how important is the timing of these arrests So, for instance, these foiled FBI terrorist arrests. Is the timing here going to be something that we can take a look at in the future and say, hey, this potentially is something that isn't so much of an act of terrorism that was intercepted by the FBI. It could possibly be more of a marketing, type of movement, propaganda, disinfo, just whatever you want to call it. And also, how many of these arrests that are happening, how many of these are actually individual thoughts and ideas and intention versus FBI informant persuasion.
Yeah.
So so I think it's, timing is always going to be kind of an issue with these types of plots. When you have public attention currently on those sorts of events, and the public is excited with that issue, there's your timing. There's incentives all around. The media loves it because they have huge sensational headlines, which then brings in more viewers, and you have the FBI who loves it because then they are getting credit for something that they actually did against terrorism. You have the informants who love it because most of the time a lot of these guys are criminals, or they get time off of prison sentences or no time served because of participating in this. Then you have the government who also loves it because it gives them the ability to pass more restrictive and surveillance laws against Americans in order to keep us, quote unquote, safe. So the timing, I think, with this is going to be something crucial. The guy in Ohio was arrested right on the heels of the attacks in the quote unquote attacks in France. So that's definitely an aspect to this. And just some stats so you guys are in abreast to what, how much of these arrests have been going on since 9/11. Okay, there's been 500 terrorist arrests since 9/11, and nearly half of those involved an informant. All the informants in many of those cases were paid as much as $100,000 per assignment, and were working off criminal and immigrational violations, which that brings up another good point that I'll get to. Tips from informants led to 158 prosecutions, and out of those 158, 49 were either led by an FBI operative who either instigated the terrorist actions or directed them. And these plots of these 58 cases did not come from the individual suspects of those crimes. So, this then leads to the concern or the topic of how troubling is this, how these FBI informants are coerced into doing this, how they're incentivized, how they're carrying themselves when they're doing this, how they're finding these terrorists and leading them into these crimes. And I think it also caveats to the fact that our criminal justice system is completely flawed. So let's say you have a guy here, right, who gets arrested for one crime, and anybody jump in if you feel like it. But let's say so you have a guy who's arrested for a minor drug charge, right? Mm-hmm. And this guy, as a result of this one arrest, winds up with, let's say, 15 different crimes, side crimes, to this one arrest. And he's then approached and told, hey, listen, if you do this, and we give you training, and we pay you, or we shave off some of your prison time, we're going to show you how to go into a mosque and how to case and single out people who are potential perpetrators of terrorist attacks domestically here in American soil. And like one of these guys in the Newburgh Four, his name was James Carmody or something like that, and he was extremely poor. And imagine this: you're super poor, and you've got some FBI informant who you don't know this is what he is. But that's who he was, dogging you for 8, 9, 10 months. Hey, come on, let's do this. Let's do this. Then all of a sudden, you've got $250,000, vacations, and cars to incentivize you. I mean, that is sometimes all it takes for somebody to make a positive action towards committing a terrorist act. And that's when they zero in on you, and then that's when you get arrested. The problem with that is that's not your own homegrown individual thought. That is completely manufactured, peer pressured. So are they really fighting terror? And so I think what, needless to say, the line between somebody creating their own terrorist plot and entrapment is so fine now that there is really nobody can fairly and through the law call it out. And anyways, and just to wrap this up, there was a guy earlier this year from California who was an environmental terrorist, right? He got sentenced to 20 years, I believe it was in like 2007. And he was freed from domestic terrorism charges on January 8th after the government told a judge it had inadvertently failed to hand over thousands of papers of FBI documents to his defense counsel in the original trial. These were then these documents were uncovered via a FOIA request, and his sentencing from the first case was appealed, and then it was reheard. This guy's name is Eric McDavid. Now, the interesting thing about this guy is he was approached by an 18-year-old FBI informant named Anna at some type of anarchist, concert, like get-together type thing. And this young girl approached him and basically, over the course of a couple years, flirted and floozied these guys into talking about, they were talking about blowing up, I think, cell towers and a dam somewhere, and all this other stuff. But basically what it boils down to is when he met this girl, Anna, she had pink hair, she was kind of a punk, presented herself as this free-spirited anarchist, and the way she carried herself and went about this, it was just totally wrong. These guys were super young at the time, so the FBI actually called her a godsend in an article I read in Vice magazine, and because radicals, so according to the FBI, radicals can sniff out the professional undercover officers too easily, they said. So this girl was a natural quick thinker and she wasn't obvious, she was unsuspecting. She didn't, have any copness to her. So anyways, long story short, this guy was basically his charges all got dropped down to one count of conspiracy to commit an act of terrorism. It was the day before the day he was released was one day away from him spending nine years in prison. So this is something where you have a bunch of young guys listening to Rage Against the Machine who talked a big talk, but these weren't threats to society. These were young guys who were trying to show off to a young 18-year-old, what they had thought like-minded girl, who, one of them wound up spending almost a decade in prison because of this FBI-led informant's implications of a terrorist act put on them through her actions as that informant. So, I mean, that to me just it goes to say to all the people out there who say we're domestic terrorists and we are potential threats of mass murder or danger or terrorist acts on American soil and everything else. Now, that's kind of interesting when you think about that, and then you look at all this. So who's really the domestic terrorist here? Is it us or is it our own government? That's the question that it leads, and and it also goes to show how easily minds are manipulated and brainwashed, and how easily people fall into the trap of being the scapegoat or the puppet or the fall guy for a greater agenda and a bigger plan, and maybe even possibly just a few people getting a pat on the back.
Right.
So
it also goes to show that they have a past track record of entrapment or coercion to get people to commit crimes or whatever agenda they have to do that. They've obviously shown a pattern of going out of their way to coerce people to commit the crimes that they want committed. We've also got the examples of, I don't remember how old he was, I think he was just a kid. He was playing a video game, and he made some off-the-wall comment about guns in his school or something like that, and they ended up coming and getting him, okay, because now apparently a child playing a video game making off-the-wall threats or off-the-wall comments, it wasn't even a threat, it was more of a comment, but it was construed to be threatening, and even he can be considered a terroristic threat. If they've got motive to do this in the world, don't they also have motive to do this online?
See, and I've seen it over and over. But to me, I guess a question that I ask is like, why set up so many people to entrap themselves? Other than like a thought police type scenario, like in 1984. That's what I see. Is it really that? Is it Big Brother that's trying to control the masses by, kind of like the Goldstein book in 1984, it was all set up the whole time. And is that, I listened very carefully to all of what you were saying, Tiffany, and to me it's very, upsetting, to say the least. And I wonder, is this all to kind of compartmentalize us even further than we already are?
Well, I think part of it is to do that. I think part of it is to give some validity to certain going-ons and certain events. I think some part of it is to give some validity to certain entities of the government. I've personally had experiences of nothing to this level, because I'm certainly not a domestic terrorist, but I've had experiences. But I've had experiences with, on a local level, that I'll go into someday, where I had something of this sorts happen to me. And I'll tell you, when it's happening to you, you cannot feel more vulnerable or helpless, because there's nobody. I mean, how do you prove that this is what's going on? Because honestly, you say it out loud to people and you look like a paranoid nut, because that's what we've been conditioned to believe. We have all since birth been conditioned for several things. We trust, we believe government, all right? That's how we're conditioned at birth. They are the end say. They are the end all. We believe and trust our pediatricians. We don't question these people. They just know. And so when you have a situation happen where they are actually the ones who aren't being honest and acting as you're raised to believe they are, when you speak out about it, all of a sudden I felt personally like a nut. I'm like, nobody's going to believe this. It's interesting how many more people do than you think initially, but I think that's part of it, definitely.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
This whole terrorist thing really has a very, very bad taste to it, very bad smell. Whether it be, the quote-unquote American apple pie, Timothy McVeigh type, or whether it be the immigrant from Yemen, or whether it be just Joe Blow around the corner. They're painting everyone that questions the narrative questions their agenda, but whatever religion or race, terrorists. Sandy Hook Research Group, domestic terrorists. 9/11 Truth, domestic terrorists. I mean, goddamn, anybody that talks about anything could be labeled a domestic terrorist. Put out a tweet now, you're a domestic terrorist. On Facebook now, they have a new app where I believe they want to. If the post that you put up is quote unquote real information, it can be taken down. I mean, what the hell is that? Who's to say what is real, what is not real? And as far as the jihadi aspect of it, it's a very deep rabbit hole. It is them bringing people in from other countries and that do have radical sentiments, because there are a small group of people who have that radical Islamic ideology. It's a small group, like any other radical religion has their fringes who would do violence towards other people in the name of whatever God they believe in. And they bring them here because they know they're easy to do. And they have people that are younger that they go into the mosque and recruit. It's a whole recruiting ground. And it is entrapment because they do find people that can be easily swayed, or the biggest carrot to dangle is money, of course. I mean, like you said, Tiffany, if you take a poor person with already some anti-American, anti-Western ideology, throw them a couple of $1,000s, which is by their standards, they buy them cheap. You can have them do anything, and they're the perfect patsy or fall guy. And it's crazy because ever since 9/11, we kind of saw this coming. Even in the early days of 9/11 Truth, now they're going to breed homegrown jihadis. And now all of a sudden, where the hell did ISIS come from? He just came out of the blue, and you see how the media pumps them up. And we see the false beheadings. We see the narrative. We can see it. If you watch Fox and CNN and people like that who consider themselves somewhat informed, they refuse to believe. Oh, how can you say that's fake? Oh, those damn Muslims. They just want to blow us up. And that's not quite the case, because you have to take a look at the to do this. And go ahead, Truth.
Oh,
yes,
no.
Truth.
I do see a lot of that. ISIS is a great point of that. It's, yes, sure, there are real extremist Muslims out there. There's no doubt about that. But again, it's taking and twisting a story to use it to an advantage as propaganda, to push that fear, to scare you into these new way of thinking, the way they want you to think. And, something that I was, kind of thinking about that kind of ties into this, talking about like setting people up, you guys remember Sirhan?
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And, he still swear that he was under mind control. And he, even like some of the whole way he kept pulling the trigger, it's just, it ties into it, and that's like a predecessor to how they do it now. Now it's like way more vague and subtle, and it works really well, especially for people that are consumed by their daily lives, consumed by their phones and televisions and the news and whatever's pumped into them. They don't have time to observe for themselves. And like you said, it does go after those that are easily manipulated. Those are the ones that they go for, because that's an easy target, and it sets an example to everyone else out there, and it gives us that whole, like you said, the domestic terrorism idea. It leaves a nasty smell and bad taste in your mouth, because that's exactly what the plan is, to label anybody that disagrees with whatever their agenda is, which I don't guess any of us exactly know. But anyone that doesn't agree with any little detail, oh, well, they're a domestic terrorist.
An extremist. That's the new catchphrase, extremist. Every gun owner in America knows what it's like to be painted as a domestic terrorist, because since Sandy Hook, they have the promotional campaign has been underway to label anyone who appreciates firearms or is into training or anything like that, to really paint them with that same brush. They're just horrible people that actually founded the country you live in and all that, but we just got to get rid of that whole mentality, and that's why I think we're seeing this push to label people, anyone outside of the view or the narrative that is handed out by the machine. Anyone that does not toe that is considered now an extremist.
And I don't necessarily think that these things, these going-ons are considerably more hidden now. I actually think they're more obvious. And I think the reason they're more obvious is to confuse us even more. And I think, for instance, situations like Sandy Hook and situations like ISIS and all of these other recent events, they're very obvious. They're very confusing. They're very the info that's put out there is contradicting. It appears manufactured, but I think they're set up like this intentionally to get people who are looking deeper and questioning. I mean, basically, it's to get us to chase our tails, and and I think the agenda here with all of this, the whole thing with the guns, I mean, honestly, the NRA is so huge. I'm a member, my dad's a member, my dad's a competition speed shooter, right? And so I've been around guns since I was little. And I learned how to shoot when I was very young. I learned the proper way to handle a gun, or when I was a little kid, if a friend of mine, I was at their house and we found a gun, what to do. It was education, and it was good that I knew these things. But anyways, I was getting off topic. But the NRA is so big. To really take away that Second Amendment, you guys, is going to be, I mean, it's just going to be so impossible. Guns are a culture, are part of American culture. They're a very strong and large part of American culture. I don't know how much of this agenda is to necessarily take the guns away, if it is more like you're saying, to create a label of potential perpetrators of danger on American soil. So I think more of the agenda is to label us all as being mentally incapable of living peacefully among society, of us being mentally ill, of us being in need of closer monitoring and control. I think also what it's leading to is a more scripted society, which then turns into blurring the lines of gender and then you have progressive thinkers and it's just it all leads into a whole bunch of highways of topic for hours and hours and hours. But I just think that really their approach now isn't to be as discreet. I mean, and here's the other thing too. Everybody who says, "Oh, they're crazy," MK Ultra was real. That happened. That wasn't a figment of some researcher's imagination who was on LSD one night. I'm sure that really happened. And the technology from when that's happened to now is so much greater. Who's to say that we're not all, and we actually all are somewhat experiments of that nature now, with GMOs, with pollutants, with vaccinations, so we don't really know exactly what we're all being pumped with. Our children are being pumped with. So, this could all be manufactured on such a level in such a degree that them having to disguise a lot of these things may not be as important as we all think, because I think that the perpetrator behind this, or the machine, like some you guys like to call it or whatever, is so huge and so unattainable for just one person to conquer or expose or whatever, that the things that we're seeing that seem intentional and purposeful and misleading, that's because they are. What's that saying, you guys? Somebody help me out here. Sometimes when about people are hiding, like out in public, you can
hiding in plain sight.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Thank you.
Sometimes the best place to hide something is in plain sight. And
right.
We're seeing that manufactured in my opinion, through all forms of media. It's still on television and newspaper. It's always been in all the traditional forms of media. That's why those things are there in the first place. But now, since we have social media and the most of the people have went away from the TV. They're not watching the machine that way, but they are plugged into some device. They are watching something on the internet. And now there's so much attention there that I'm seeing a very open push for people to go out and do the things you're saying, cause misdirection, even play on a team to distract and divert the mass mind where they want it to go, using very simple tools and techniques that always amounts down to words.
Yeah, I think, as far as the psyops are concerned, terrorism, domestic terrorism, international terrorism, that is just one part of the psyop. And one of the main mouthpieces of the psyop is our good old television, and now the internet, obviously. But the television is still a very effective tool to get the information out. This goes back to the inception of television. Part of the news programming in the old days might have been a little more meatier. The days of Walter Winchell, and later on Dan Rather and such. It might have been a little more substance to it, and it seemed a little more genuine, even though there was still bullshit narratives, of course. But since day one, I believe that it was programmed to deceive us, to make us think a certain way, whether it be something simple as a Mr. Clean commercial, or something as perplexed as Channel 13, which is public. My channel in my part of the woods is public broadcasting, where they have these really in-depth documentaries. It's all geared to make you think a certain way, and it takes away the critical thought aspect of things, because we're presenting to you a narrative, and this is the narrative that we want. All are pretty similar. One might be a little left, one might be a little right, but for me, the left and right is just two wings of the same bird. And and you could also look into what our children are shown. I mean, there's been enough work on the symbolism in Disney movies and all these different cartoons, and and who better to indoctrinate than the children? You don't want to show children something gory or crazy, but at the same time, all these cartoons have some really deep symbolism and subliminal message to them, and there's no denying that. And Disney was, I believe, a Freemason for what it's worth. That's a whole other rabbit hole we can get into another time. The whole esoteric side of things. But nonetheless, it's quite effective. I mean, I remember seeing documentaries about Bugs Bunny, which is Warner Brothers Studios, and they had a film festival at one time. It was all banned videos during the World War II era. There was some pretty racy stuff that would never fly by today's standards in today's PC world. But that was all programming. And there is the Nazis were huge into programming. The Nazis actually looked up to Walt Disney because they saw how effective he was. I believe it was Goebbels. Okay, I don't know how to pronounce it correctly.
Joseph Goebbels.
Yes, he was, I believe, the Nazis' main propaganda PR person.
Minister of propaganda, yes.
Yes, and he was hugely into Disney. I believe he tried to even get Disney on board because he saw how effective Disney was at getting people towards the war effort to fight the Nazis back then, so to speak.
Well, to tie into that exactly, you look after World War II, Project Paperclip, where we brought all the Nazi scientists and everybody that would have been considered war criminals, and we said, well, you can work for the United States, and you're basically, you're fine, you're pardoned, whatever. And many of them did. I mean, that's where von Braun came from. He's the head of everything we still do with space comes from von Braun technology. Well, then you even look into the MK Ultra program, which was Nazi experiments of mind control, and you see the progression of it. I've read some of the CIA declassified documents and just the stuff they tell you that they've done, and all kinds of crazy tests. And what I'm seeing now is they've mastered their mind control to now where they don't have to necessarily brainwash you. They just, like Tiffany said at the beginning, they condition you from the day you're born into this system to be indoctrinated into the way that they want you to think. And if you don't, it all ties back together, because if you don't agree with it, well, now you're an extremist, and you don't belong in this society that we created. And that's kind of what I'm saying.
Right.
And even it's interesting if you guys watch, even with For instance, even with like the recent measles, quote unquote measles outbreak at Disneyland. Here you go. You have a measles outbreak at the happiest place on earth with all these little kids. That's so manufactured and so intentional. When I heard that on the news, I was cracking up. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Measles outbreak at Disneyland. Okay, guys, listen. If there's truly a measles outbreak at Disneyland, I'm in the Southern California area, and if anybody's been to Disneyland lately, you'll realize there are so many people there in that park, shoulder to shoulder, throughout the whole entirety of that park. There wouldn't be, what was it, like 50 or 100 cases that stemmed from there. It would be in the thousands. There would be so many measles everywhere. That, and anyways, I forgot.
That's a great point.
And that's the thing, like with that measles outbreak at Disney, they took that, and it's kind of like that's kind of their tactics lately. They're kind of going for the places you just don't go, the innocent, the children, Disneyland, Mickey Mouse, and so with that measles outbreak, of course, brought out the dialogue of the mothers and mostly mothers and family members of vaccine injured individuals or children to say, hey, wait a second, you guys, don't, just because they're saying that, Mickey gave everybody measles, don't run out and vaccinate your kids. No anti-vaccination parent or person of that mindset is going to tell you not to vaccinate. They're going to tell you to research vaccinations, to read what the ingredients are, to ask your doctor for organic alternatives, to do some testing on your child to see if they have a certain blood reaction to, I forget what it's called right now, but that is my approach, at least, and I know a lot of people who have the same way of thinking, and that's the approach I've seen. I've never seen an anti-vaccination person brutally attack a pro-vaxxer without being attacked first. Now, I can't say I haven't attacked him, with my lingo, but not with my fists, obviously. But here's my point: they create this dialogue to then create another sector of our society. So here you have basically a bunch of mothers, right? You have a bunch of moms who have struggled through injuries to their child that are life-changing. A lot of these women in families, they wind up in divorce because of autism, because the stress and the financials and everything is so heavy. A lot of these are single mothers. A lot of them are single fathers. These are devastated people who have been looking into this for years and years and years. They're now trying to paint a picture of these people as being radical, potential threats to our herd immunity. I mean, come on, really? Herd immunity? It's so stupid. And the thing that cracks me up the most is if you're all vaccinated, then you don't have anything to worry about. You can just go about your day. Let us all get sick and die. But that's never the argument, because you know why? That's not the point.
That's right.
The point is to recondition us into the thinking that we had back in 1952 or 46 or whenever the first vaccination came out, which is doctors are credible, the government's credible, we need to do this to save our lives. Back then, they don't have the massive amounts of information at their fingertips like we do now. And with that information comes people at a level of self-education and self-knowledge that we've never even had before. And so these propaganda campaigns of making people who are simply educating themselves for the better of their children and their families, they're turning us into psychopaths. Even Jimmy Kimmel, and I posted this on my Google Plus page, and I may take it down because it got so nasty, but I posted, Jimmy Kimmel did a little skit a couple times on his show. It was about message to the pro-vaxxer, or the anti-vaxxers, right? And he basically went on there and gave a monologue where he put them down and made fun of them and made these passive-aggressive comments about how, they're smarter than doctors. Then he had a group of, he filmed little segments with quote-unquote doctors, which, and this is just the way I think, you guys, so it's going to sound probably kind of silly, not one of them provided a credential. Like, I didn't see a badge or like their ID card, or like their diploma.
Right.
So you have all these people he claims are doctors, basically, and literally cussing people out who aren't vaccinating their kids. But they bleeped it out, of course. But they're all saying, bleep, 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 bleep this, and it was really a really goofy piece he did. But here's the consensus on that. The majority of people are going to hear that, and maybe if they were on the fence, they're going to go, gosh, I am such an idiot, because he honestly made me feel kind of stupid, and I'm aware of this.
Exactly.
Yeah, I felt like a dumbass. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, geez, Jimmy Kimmel's like totally ragging on me right now. Now, then I thought about that. The next thought in my mind was, who gives it? You know what? But like, I couldn't give a flying monkey that what Jimmy Kimmel thinks about me, but not most people don't think the way I do. And so you're going to have all these people who are maybe being proactive in protecting their children, rethink that and go out and vaccinate their kids the next day, because this sock puppet of the government who happens to have a goofy show on late at night told you to, so they're going to do it.
And that's the point. That's the point.
Yes.
Because it's television is monkey see, monkey do. And that's why they keep showing us the dumbest, the lowest common denominator of humanity is what's been elevated to our ideal of what we should be as human beings. They show us just the least of everything, the base of it all, and say, here, aspire to that. And if they keep repeating it, repetition is key in hypnosis.
Yes.
And so
it's the key in marketing too.
Exactly. Say the number 3 times in the commercial. So by that, it's monkey see, monkey do, and they're just repeating what they want people to emulate on TV. And look around. I mean, it's scary, but it is working.
Well, you guys, I did a really crappy video on measles outbreaks when it first came out. I did it from my phone. I'm not very versed on making videos, obviously, if anybody's seen any of the ones I've tried to put out quickly mostly from my phone, because I'm busy with my kids and work and like just hectic. But I did a piece on the measles outbreak, right? A little bit after they started pumping it up. And if you go to YouTube, everybody, when you get a chance, go to YouTube and type in the search box, measles outbreak. There's been a measles outbreak every month for the past 3 years. No joke. And they say the same exact thing. The worst measles outbreak in 15 years. Measles is here again, and we haven't seen this disease in 15 years. Brian Williams actually said, and this cracked me up, this disease is so old it's new again. I mean, it's like, what the hell does that mean? And then, so old it's new again. Doctors don't even know what it is. Are you kidding? Like, come on, if some doctor doesn't know what the heck measles is, then that raises a major, whole nother area of concern. Like, hello. And then you have like Diane Sawyer on there going, they have all their cute little catchy phrases, for their bits. Measles on the march. And then, but in every single one of these newscasts, local, national, whatever, it's always the same thing. They have some expert come in and they'll say, well, coincidentally, where these outbreaks are happening happens to be an area of the community that doesn't believe in vaccination. And I'm just like, what? And then you'll have another one in 2 months.
Have you guys seen that there was a video a guy put out, I don't know, maybe a year ago or so, you might not have seen it, but it was basically a collection of different newscasters, like local and, morning shows, everything, and it was like showing how they would say literally the exact same thing. Like they would have phrases, and one day they would say, you'd hear it on every news, and they'd use the exact same phrase, measles on the march, for instance. Like every day or that day, every newscaster on every public station out there would be like, measles on the march, and then that would be the stories. And it's interesting because it ties back in. It's like everybody gets fed that same story. And again, something else I want to bring up that I looked into, I was going somewhere one night, and I don't really listen to the radio, but NPR was on, and my girlfriend likes to listen to it. And I happened to just listen to it. It was a story about the end of college, and basically how in the next 10 years they plan on basically making the idea of college that we have now obsolete, that it will all be online, that with Common Core and this, everybody, basically the plan is to get everybody to get the exact same education. Everybody will take the exact same tests. So it's totally uniformed, and that again ties right back into what we've been talking about all night, the conditioning of our mindset and the direction of it through their narrative, what they want us to hear.
Absolutely. They want to control a narrative, and they're doing a very effective job, because the anti-vaxxers are much, much more smaller than the pro-vaxxers, obviously. And we knew that already going into this when we were calling this from the beginning when Ebola came out. But again, their agenda is wicked, and they know they got everybody on board with it, whether we like it or not. And yes, we can resist, and yes, we can hold out. But it's just really sad to see that so many people just can't see through the BS. And it's not like I'm not a rocket scientist by any stretch of the imagination. And I can see through the BS just by a little discernment. And there are people a lot smarter than me that I know that just refuse to see through it, because I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that you don't want your perception shattered. You don't want certain things that you were raised with, or certain things that you believe with or stand on, to be shattered. Because once you take away one little thing, it's like a house of cards comes tumbling down.
Ignorance is bliss. Ignorance is bliss, basically.
Absolutely.
Sorry, Infinity. Yeah.
No, it's fine. You're absolutely right.
Let's take this even further then. Bringing it into a point where we're at, where we're already discussing things and we see through a lot of the lies. Well, now you've got this next level of manipulation, which is the different groups or the different people out there that make it a point to derail all conversation, to throw out irrelevant topics, to what is current, to derail what your idea is, to what you might be looking into. And to me, that is a very important thing. That's just it's as important as the mainstream masses being manipulated, because we are awake, in quotations there. We are still being manipulated under it's just like, back to what I said, the Goldstein's book. He was Big Brother all along, or connected to it. And I don't think it's as bad as that, but the people you watch, they constantly try to shift and change and control the narrative. And I'd actually like to hear Chad mention some of this.
I think you're hitting it right on the head, because part of it is not only to confuse, say us on the panel, the stuff that goes on in these internet chat rooms. It's not even so much to only derail the host, but more importantly, it's for the audience. It's a problem, reaction, solution kind of thing, where they're fulfilling a bunch of different roles by the nonsense they're putting out there. It's diversion, but not just diversion for the host trying to derail the show or things like that. It's actually trying to divert the attention from the audience that's going into it. And that's what advertising is. I mean, whether it's to get us to buy this toilet paper over that one, or these chips over those, or whatever, which I don't even know why it matters, since they're all owned by the same companies anyway. But either way, advertising is mind control. That's what it is. When I ask the audience right now, what color are your walls? That's mind control. Because even if you don't answer aloud, your mind is used to give a response. That's what the brain is for.
Yeah.
And when I ask you what color are your walls, your brain instantly gives you the answer. You can't help it. It happens. That's just what it's for. And so a lot of times advertising is designed to ask you the questions that make you say aloud in your brain. You repeat aloud in your brain what they want you to say. And I'm seeing the same thing happen on the internet now, where people are completely using diversion to create uncertainty. And this is why it's so easy, is they don't have to have facts, insight, information. They can literally sit around and just think up the most inane, insane, chaotic thing they can come up with. And if they just say it out loud and keep repeating it, well, that in and of itself is enough to create a diversion. So we're seeing it everywhere we look. And apparently what we And I don't just mean, you and I and even the people listening to this show. I mean the people of the world or of a nation or of a city. Apparently what we think is really important. Apparently what we think happens. And they want to control our mind via media so that they can control what happens. Because if they can get everyone thinking the same thing, back to your Common Core education, give everybody the same frame of reference, the same information, tell everybody the same lies, everybody will believe it, right?
Yeah.
And that's what they're doing. And all of these tactics are nothing more than to get us to repeat to ourselves what they want us to say. They want to control our mind because ultimately they want to control our asses.
Yes.
That's a great perspective.
And on a micro level, we see it here in our own little community. When we have these type of shows and discussions, when you look in the side chat, for some reason there are some people that always repeat the same meme. And it might be a joke, it might be some people are misinformed, or just might be their opinion, which everyone's entitled to. But it's always these kind of outlandish, ridiculous memes that get repeated over and over again. You have to ask yourself, is there an agenda going on? And we just heard about CENTCOM having a whole hired troll network, and not only just on YouTube, but across every social media platform and every website on the internet. And particularly when it comes to deal with event skeptic, conspiracy-minded people that question the official narrative. And to some degree, they're quite effective because people pay attention to them. And it's an unfortunate thing that these people persist. And I think these are the little traps that we have to be aware of not feeding into it and kind of recognizing from the gate.
Well, I had a good friend of mine and I were in conversation the other day. This guy's name is Jeff Dryden, and he knows pretty much everything. Anybody knows I'm laughing. Yeah, I mean, I find it hard to believe. No, he doesn't know everything. There's some things I know that he doesn't know, but he knows a lot, okay? And he and I were talking about this, and I think a major problem is, though, that we often as researchers kind of fall into is being skeptical or assuming that everybody is some type of paid form of opposition and some paid government troll or worker or something. I think, and then we approach them like that. We handle them with caution and almost with care because we're thinking that they're working for this ABC agency doing this. And a lot of the times too, you guys, just to remember, I might be getting off topic here a little bit, but a lot of these people, if we're talking about brainwashing and mind control and easily persuaded to believe one thing or another, a lot of these people, they're just victims of that. And they have nothing better to do. They have fallen into a narrative that they feel relatable to, that they feel they've been persuaded into being aggressive about, and then there you have it. You have a whole bunch of soldiers out there and noise promoting these things, and so I think that's another thing to keep in mind too, that there's not so much of, I don't think there's as many agents or informants or out there as we think. And I think a lot of the more vocal ones, those aren't going to be the guys who actually are who I hear a lot of people say they think they are. Everybody who thinks anyone who has a lot of YouTube subscribers or is very vocal, they all work for someone. It's not necessarily the case. They're not going to be that transparent. So I just want to throw that out there.
And I agree.
That's a great point.
I do think, though, that although not all of them there are many. And as far as YouTube subscribers, I think that, not all of them, but many are. Because I think that, you watch a lot of just who promotes who, what kind of thing like that, and very interesting stuff. And I'm not calling anybody out, and I don't have the answers, but I see a lot of fishy things going on. And I do see a lot of people showing up out of nowhere, and then they blow up to 30,000 subscribers, and it's like, how did that happen? And it's like, and then the messages I sometimes see are a little wrong. I've seen several people out there that get quite popular and people like them, but they put out totally not that it's all wrong information, but there's definitely, they don't have all their facts. And I think the key point, regardless if they are paid or not, anybody with a huge subscriber base has a duty to be responsible with the information that they give out. And regardless if it's intentional or not, it creates a lot of problems when people are no longer responsible with their seat in that opportunity to speak out to thousands of people, because that really is what I see a lot of. Some people out there that've got close to 100,000 subscribers, maybe even more, but their information is not always what it should be. And if I can see it in my little 3,000 subscriber base, and if I'm I don't think I'm the smartest person out there, or even the one that can see the most. But if I can see a lot of this stuff, then I think these people have to, in some way, know what they're doing.
Absolutely. And keep in mind, I love what Tiffany said there, because it's not as if everyone out there doing this is a secret agent with the government. No, and it doesn't take everyone, by the way. It only takes a small number, a handful, to go out and seed the ideas, and the useful tools will come along, pick up those ideas, and run with them like crazy. And don't even have to pay them. They'll just do it because that's what they do, because it's funny to them. I love what Tyranny News Network said just out of the chat there. The enemy of online agents is creativity and unpredictability. And that's the key right there. Not only to be honest with who you are, what you know, what you don't know, but to be yourself, to be here to do what you're here to do, and not be influenced by the stuff that's out there. The way to get around that is exactly what he's saying, is to be yourself and to do you, for lack of a better term.
That's a great point. And again, playing devil's advocate there a little bit, or even just giving the other side of it a different perspective. I do see other people out there that do have that creativity, that are, that they do put out like content that draws you in, that's well done, but it's not, again, accurate, and you can do what you do. And I think you're absolutely right. That is the best way to avoid the people attacking you through comments or whatever, you're making videos about you or anything like that. Because, if you just ignore it, you're not feeding into it, and that really is the best approach for that. But at a certain point, if people cannot see like certain entities out there that are doing things that for, I guess lack of a better explanation, they're doing wrong things. They're not being transparent. They're in it for the wrong reason, and you can see it, and other people see it. Then I think that just as it is a duty for somebody with a lot of subscribers to put out accurate information, it is also just as much our duty to call out those who don't, if we see it, and the thing is, I don't think it's good to go out there and call everybody out you disagree with, but if a lot of people can agree that something isn't right about particular individuals, then I think that there is something to it, and it is worth looking into, and if nothing else, approaching those people directly and giving them a chance to explain their side.
Exactly, and I want to clarify, just for the sake of everyone listening, it's not about agreement or disagreement. That's a whole different thing. It's completely different for two people to have a disagreement on any given issue than it is for one person who gets out of bed in the morning and the sole purpose of their existence is to push an agenda, whatever the agenda is, and that's what I'm seeing a lot. And so when the people I call out are the people that I see that are there to sell me an agenda, which is, i.e., control my mind. They want to make my decisions for me because for some reason they don't think I'm capable. And my thing is, I don't want to make up their mind for them. I just want to decide for me. So that's the difference between people who are out there selling an agenda. They're here specifically to get you to think what they want you to think. Even if what they're saying is nonsense, even if what they want you to believe is nonsense, they're still saying it with the covert agenda of manipulating your mind. And you know what? I want to make up my own mind. That's all I'm asking.
Well, those people are so easy to spot too, because they all have the same formula and the same format. They don't give a whole lot of info. If you think about it, they don't really give you a whole lot of facts and figures and information and stuff. They just character assassinate. That's all they do. They go after you personally. They go after your character, and they get you. They want to get you heated and fired up, which is, with me, it's not very hard to do sometimes. And they do that with the intent of doing exactly what happens, unfortunately, sometimes, which is you get really pissed off, and then you get into this childish banter back and forth. And those people, and I think it boils down to, like you're saying, Chad, is intent. What is their intent? Is their intent to help educate people, or is their intent to ruin how you are perceived by your peers in social media, in your community, whatever? But that's just a tactic of even just politics. Look at how politics work. You have running mate, opponents, and from the different parties. All campaigning is name smearing of the people who they're running against. This is it's almost like everything has become almost like a political matter. We're almost like all of our own little politicians within our own environment, our own worlds. Yeah. And we have the people from whatever side you want to say you're on, from the other side, who are running campaigns against your character, and it's those types of people are really easy to spot. I mean, it's just they're out there. You know what I've started doing, which is kind of, I find it funny. I don't know, maybe it's a little immature, but I get a little kick out of it when I have time, is these people who are partaking in this character assassination against me. I mean, I had one thread, you guys, I was called the C word more times on this thread than I had ever been called in my life. And this was the Jimmy Kimmel thread. And people really took offense to my Jimmy Kimmel thread. I don't know why. But anyways, so they're saying that, I was asking them questions saying, give me your credentials. Explain to me how you know more about this topic than I do, and let me know your resources or cite your references so I can read them myself, because that's what I would do. And nobody answered them, and they said they were answering them. But they just kept attacking me personally. So what I did is I individually went to this handful of people. I went to their Google Plus page. I did a little bit of background on them, and I came back at them. I'm like, one guy was a unemployed gamer who lived with his parents, and who said he survived brain damage and was currently in the process of figuring out Assassin's Creed. That guy had been the most vocal out of all of them, right? And I was like, you got to be kidding me right now. Now, I doubt this guy is a paid CIA informant or a paid operative to spread disinfo, but he is obviously somebody in our younger generation who is one of the victims of the most indoctrination and conditioning, and who's these younger people now. I mean, I'm not super old, but people younger than me, I think I'm like the last generation who had some not as much of this as there are now, but they're very influential, and it's very easy to get them fired up about something and make them want to be combative to a single mom going on there saying, hey, Jimmy Kimmel's kind of lame for putting this stupid skit on his show, and anyways, my whole point is, so I started doing to them what they were doing to me, but with some basis to what I was saying. I wasn't doxing them or throwing out their personal info. I was just saying, hey, you gamer who lives in your parents' basement who survived brain damage, what's your experience in this? And then, hey, you, the whatever somebody else was, and some other person, and most of them shut up after I did that. And I even started pricing their giving them a price for every comment. I was like, oh, there's a 15-cent comment, even though I know a lot of these people aren't paid posters or whatever. It still cracks me. I do it. I give them I range their post, their comment based on a scale of anywhere from 1 cent to about, I've never gotten to a 75-cent one yet, but about 50 cents. We do a little up. Oh, that was a 30-cent comment. Good job. Keep. Yeah, and somebody's getting a lot of 5-cent comments. I tell them that they're slacking. They need to, they need to fix that. Go back to training. So it's just, I've noticed turning the tables on these people a little bit has an interesting reaction to it, and a lot of the times they don't know what the hell to do. They're just like kind of deer in headlights. If you could see them, thank God we can't. Because if we could, I'd be in prison. No, I'm just kidding.
I'd like to bring this up. I think you're right. A lot of these people, again, I like to just kind of play the other's perspective. You're absolutely right. Many of these people are pretty easily noticeable. But what I'm kind of hinting at, anyways, is what if there's people that are interlaced amongst our community, people we all know, trust, and love, and what if they're really actually not for truth? What if they've got their own agenda, or somebody is paying them, or somebody higher up, like, outside of our group, like Google or YouTube or the government, whoever pays them? And I think that there is some evidence out there pointing that this might be the case, that there might actually be others out there trying to control the narrative through alternative means that aren't so sly or that aren't so easily seen, because they work their ways to become our friends. And a lot of people I see out there, they might not necessarily attack you personally, but yet they are very passive aggressive and nuanced things to hint to you and to get you to get angry first, to draw first blood. And again, I'm not about naming names. That's not what I'm here to do. But I do know that there are people interlaced in our community that are pretending to be on our side, that are pretending to stand for truth, when in actuality they have their own agenda or are working for someone else.
Well, Truth, I've found job placement ads for, I think they call them social media content managers. Yep. And these, and actually, I looked the other day and I found, I think it was something like 3,000 or.
Oh, do we lose Tiffany?
Yeah, her mic sounded like it cut out.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. She'll be back momentarily. So, this whole PSYOP macro level, it's on the whole world. I mean, sometimes, we get caught up in our Western European point of view because, this is where we live. This is our culture. This is our part of the world. But we have to remember that this PSYOP is going on in China. This PSYOP is going on in India. It's going on in Indonesia. It's going on in Australia, in New Zealand, in Africa. Even though some people may not have direct access to the internet and television like we do, but the PSYOP goes on, whether it be through religion, whether it be what's being taught in the schools, even down to the goddamn foods, stuff like Monsanto and the whole GMO poisoning. That's a PSYOP too, because it weakens our defense systems. It's debilitating to our brain. And it's all over the place. And as far as chemtrails concerned, some people say definitely something going on with the spraying in the air. The air is not pure and it's not clean. The water is not pure and it's not clean. Just fracking alone affects the water so much. And that's part of the PSYOP as well. PSYOP is physical and mental, and to a certain level spiritual as well, for those who dally on the spiritual realm. And I just find it very disturbing that the whole world is being PSYOP to one extent or the other.
Exactly. And one of the better ways to control the mind is to control the body, to control the food, the water, everything that goes into the body. And then, of course, obviously they're controlling most things of what we see and hear as well. Most people call it news. But it's a strange condition where we do have to wonder. I see a lot of people even talking in the chat room, how do you know the difference? How can you tell? Well, like Truth says in the intro, it is about discernment. It is about using your own mind to make up to make your own decisions and determine what's happening around you for yourself, and to not be so dependent on a media, a guru, a book, anything else to do your thinking for you. You do it for yourself, and you're going to get a lot further. And then these people who wanting to come along and who want to control your thinking, well, you won't even need them because you'll be doing that for yourself.
Yeah.
Yep. Because the bottom line is they do not want people thinking for themselves to make decisions that will be best for them and their family and for their small community. They want people to be all on board. Yes, sir. No, sir. Be that 9 to 5 wage slave. Go to your cubicle. Go to your desk. Chain yourself to the computer. When you go home, watch the media that we tell you to watch and log on to the stuff that we want you to log on to. Hello?
It looks like Tiffany's back.
I can hear you. Oh, cool. She made it back in.
Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you, Infinity.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. It just dropped off. Oh, hi. I'd like to welcome Robert J. Morris to the group. Hey, Robert. How are you?
Hey, gentlemen and lady. Oh, lady dropped out. Guys, how you doing?
Good, good. We were just discussing the whole PSYOP from a micro and macro point of view, covering on all different levels of medium and physical aspects of the PSYOP. So, what is your kind of take on the PSYOP? I know you're a big tech guy. Maybe you want to. You would like to touch on the tech aspect of the PSYOP, or whatever you like.
Holy crap. You know, my take on the technological side of things. Well, PSYOP. Well, I mean, I guess lately the biggest thing is that everybody looks down. I mean, you know, if you look at culture, you know, you got the old saying that, you know, dogs never look up. Well, neither do humans anymore. You know, interdependency on devices, and you know, it's a strange thing because, you know, we think that being connected with your friends is a good thing. However, being interconnected, I mean, like, you can watch people like literally get out of their cars, and by the time they've closed the door and hit their, you know, locks, they're already looking at their phone and moving out. Now, how is it a PSYOP? Well, it's a psychological operation. It's actually an assault. It's not even a psychological operation. It's an assault on people's senses, man.
Nice.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes, I use the term PSYOP. It's kind of generalized, but yes, actually, specifically speaking, it's not really. It is psychological, but it's more than that because it's actually affecting the physical in a medical sense. You're 100% right on that.
Oh, it's horrible. It's horrible. I mean, like, you know, like, you know, when they make laws like don't text and drive. I mean, look, it doesn't say anything about law enforcement. It says something about the people that are being forced. It's like they cannot resist a text message, and that's a horrible psychological fact, and that's where the PSYOP is.
Even a step further, it's just like when they're driving down the highway, or you're driving down the highway and it goes into a construction zone. There's concrete retaining walls on both sides of the lane. Barely enough room for your car to fit through there. But yet there still has to be a sign telling you to do what is physically impossible. Do not pass. Why does the sign need to be there to tell people to do something that is not even physically possible to do? But that's where we're at. Everyone needs to be told where to drive, when to go. The light tells you when to stop. Everything is done for us to take the human out of the equation. And the more refined this gets, the more the mind control becomes effective, because it's so refined that we can't even make our own decisions anymore.
Chad, everybody knows that without actual traffic laws, everybody would drive like an idiot and nobody would know what to do, right?
Well, that's, again, tied into the conditioning.
I was being sarcastic.
If we brought up, you know, a totally different way, then, you know, I mean, for instance, you look at the Autobahn, and it's not totally lawless or anything, but, you know, people, they've got a pretty good situation for how they drive. A lot of people over there I've seen, you know, documentaries on the Autobahn and stuff. I've just always been fascinated with history, so I of course look at almost anything related to it. And you see there, you know, the thing is, we're restricted our freedom, and the more freedoms we get restricted, each generation has less and less. Like, you know, I'm younger than you. You had more freedoms when you were a kid than when I was a kid and a teenager. And think about, you know, the next generation, when any of us, if we ever had kids, what they would experience when they're, you know, my age, like 28 or so. How much different is their world going to be through the conditioning unless we actively seek to, redo it. I don't know, debrief the population, so to speak.
Right.
May I, if you don't mind, kind of combine both of your, ideals in this? Remember my conversation regarding the transference of maritime to civil law, right? See,
Yes.
under civil law, right? What has happened is all of these traffic laws and everything are all completely related back to your birth certificate. Hence, your in Canada, your social insurance, or in America, social security. Which, by the way, I think social insurance is far more clever as a name. But anyway, we won't get into that. That's just more of a language kind of a thing. But all of these things, all these traffic laws, all of these things are under civil law. They're basically, I guess you could say, they're points of leverage of which the establishment is able to leverage you into paying money for whatever infraction may be incurred. But the thing is that as long as nobody's died, nobody's been an idiot. You know what I mean? Like, thing is that we don't have the choice, and that's just like this ties into what you're saying, Truth, is that the choice has been removed from us.
By design, it looks like. By design.
Right, but you know what? Nobody can take your traveler's rights away.
Sure they can. They can declare martial law at the snap of a finger.
Well, no, at the barrel of a gun, sure, yeah, of course they can. But I'm just saying,
how it has always been done.
I'm saying that your maritime laws still run concurrently over top of civil law, but the civil law statutes are they're going to enforce them because the fucking law enforcement works for the state. Even the judges, the lawyers, they all work for state, this is where it becomes an unfair balance. Yet still, maritime law still runs concurrently. Unless you have like a binder full of paperwork in your car when you get pulled over, you're pretty much going to have a hard time saying, I don't recognize your authority. But guess what? You do have that binder full of paperwork. They have no choice but to read it. Sorry, I had to curb my language there.
Well, that's okay.
Yeah.
This is a you're allowed to use profanity on this show if you choose.
All right, thank you. I was just, I'm just trying to, bite my tongue, but you understand what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
And this is the thing, and this is the biggest and dirtiest trick played on, at least in North America. I think the system's been adopted and been used across all the colonial countries, but we'll just talk about Canada and the United States specifically, is that, right now people have been able to circumvent civil law and go back to maritime either through you got the Freeman, the Freeman movement, you got other people, the independents, and they are all basically reverting back to maritime law.
Are you talking about maritime admiral?
Yes, that's the one I'm talking about. And the first step in that is to actually abolish your own birth certificate, because that is a document that basically transfers ownership of you to the state. And this
that's
is
why it's
how
in all
they get
capital
you.
letters.
Yeah, well, no, not at first. See, this is why it's a dirty trick, is because you're still you, but now you're owned by them, and now that they own you, now they create a corporation in your name, so there's actually two yous, right?
It's your straw man.
That's right. And I just want to make that clear to anyone else who's listening, because they might not quite, get the idea. And like every single rule under civil law, like I'm talking traffic rules, I'm talking about having to have insurance, having to get a license, even a gun registration, like any of these things are absolutely ludicrous because they do not apply to maritime law. They are all under civil. And here's the thing, is that every single time they try to get you to register something or do something, it incurs a charge, and that charge it builds up money on your corporate account of you, and these things are bought and sold, on the market overseas. Like, um,
Well, Robert, the greater mind control is that people are conditioned from birth to ask for permission. Ask for permission
absolutely,
to drive, ask for permission to carry a gun, ask for permission to get married, whatever. We're
yeah.
just conditioned from birth to be asking some master for permission. Hey, can I think for myself? Hey, can I think for myself? Can I do this? That right there is
Hey,
what needs to change.
you know how they
Yeah.
send fishing boats out and they want to monitor the traffic of, let's say, the sperm whale, or they want to go and monitor the salmon. What do? They tag them, right? They tag them so they can monitor them, so they know where they are. A registration is nothing less than knowing who has what and who is capable of what and who's been licensed to do what. That is all it is about. It's basically a big census, and it's got the psychological operation equivalent of allowing you to feel good about knowing that you're able to do something. And that, my friend, that's dangerous shit. That is probably the root, the psychological root of why the people who are no longer as awake as we are where they are right now. They do not get it.
Well, see, that's kind of what I've been understanding more and more lately. We all think that we're awake, but the deeper down you go, it's like different levels of it, and like I've looked recently, and it's happened a few times, but recently I had another one where I was like, wow, and I thought I was awake. I had no clue all this was going on,
Yeah.
and that's it's going to happen continually because I don't think there is truly ever like a sense where you're totally awake unless you're like a man of knowledge, like
Yeah.
somebody that's
Unless you're the universe.
yeah, yeah,
Pretty much.
yeah.
I mean, like, and like, you know what? I could say that the nicest person ever on the planet is still going to be subjective at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And
And that's what we're working to overcome. That's what we're working, all of us, not just on this panel and not just even the people on YouTube, but people in the world who really care. That's why we're really here right now, is to change that, to make those changes where we can live in a world where we can make our own decisions and our mind isn't controlled with pretty moving pictures.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost like a kind of a poly consciousness. That's the word of the day, poly consciousness.
The new one. Yeah.
I mean, and Chad's right, but at the same time, though, I mean, individual thought is still important. However, we kind of, I don't know, we gravitate to other people with strength, right?
Pretty much.
Right?
It's like a law of attraction, so to speak. It's type of energy. Certain energy attracts others.
Absolutely. You just fucking nailed it. Nailed exactly what I was trying to say. Right on the head there, Infinity. And yeah, it absolutely is. And gravity, the concept of gravity, where mass is concerned, works exactly the same way with energy. And like I considered myself an atheist for many years, right? And said, no, I'm godless and I don't believe in God. But at the end of the day, I believe in exactly the same fucking thing. Like, it's there's you can call it, it's a rose by any other name if you would, but I mean, the laws of attraction still apply, whether it's psychological, whether it's gravity. I don't know. Like, I think it's electromagnetism.
Well, see, I'd like to take this to the next level. Speaking on the topic, and this ties in greatly with it, and this is kind of taking it deeper, and it may be a little bit of abstract, but
That's cool.
if you look at the whole idea of the conditioning and what they're trying to condition us, not to think for ourselves, not to use our own capabilities and our own awareness to discern our world around us. And for instance, you get into quantum physics, and this is something for me that I've always, it was a big thing in my life when I kind of got into quantum physics and the whole idea and theory of it. Because, basically what it comes down to, our reality is subjective. It is created by the perceiver to an extent. So as you were saying, like the law of attraction, I see it more as, you're creating what you want to see in a way, or what you believe you should see. And they want, and like Chad said earlier tonight, they're obviously very concerned about what we're thinking. That's where they're trying to derail it. Because, if we all saw the world as a truly better place, it would eventually work itself out that way. But or that we were working in that direction. It is really, truly all about controlling your perception, the way you perceive the world, the way you perceive yourself. And that's why, you've got popular culture glorifying the ego and money and fame and everything. You got the news telling you what to think. Everything is there for you, so you don't have to do it. And if you look back to older generations like my grandfather, that he went to one-room school, didn't have plumbing or running water in his house until he was like in 6th or 7th grade. This guy lived a tough life, but he is extremely intelligent, very just down to earth and logical. But he also sees that all of this is crazy, that we're controlled, and he just doesn't get in it. But my point is, we need to be able to think for ourselves. Not everything is going to be easy. Some of the information we run across is going to hurt us deep.
No, you're right, and that's why it takes so many of us. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Mm-hmm. So we have to keep pushing, and we have to, basically learn to see the universe, to see the world, to see our surroundings for what they really are, or what at least we can discern them to be what they really are. Because if you get down to, this is where it gets a little bit abstract, when you break down everything to its finest, most point, everything truly is just pure energy, and we're all connected to it in some way, fashion, or form. We are all connected to everything simultaneously. It's all happening right here, right now.
And all things behave the same. Like all things behave the same.
And we are detached from our true selves. We are not allowed to be at our true potential. That's why there's the fluoride in the water. That's why our food is poison. That's why we are constantly, pushed all these things that are terrible for us, are terrible for our minds. They don't want that out of us. Because if we could all just see our own potential, we've realized that we don't need the government anymore. We don't need laws and rules and regulation, and they have no power and control.
We don't need leaders. We do not need leaders. I mean, like, all of us are very capable of operating within our own realm and within our own jurisdiction as it sees fit. And, quite frankly, you might be a rocket scientist. I might be a gardener. Infinity might be a plumber. Tiffany might be a weapons dealer. That's awesome. But guess what? It all happens in our community. We're all capable of doing our fair share within our realm. And, we don't need leadership. Leadership is, what? Let me clarify something, because leadership is a toxic word. Because leadership denotes that somebody has to be in charge. However, everybody, and I've been maintaining this from day fucking one, since you guys have known me, we are our own leaders. And at different points in time, when the situation abruptly changes, which it does on a daily basis, those who are good at what they do take charge, and they take charge of that situation and let the other people who don't know so much. It's just like if you're tiling a floor and you don't know how to grout, the guy who knows how to grout is going to run in and say, hey, this is how you mix it, this is the consistency you need, and you're going to grout the floor like this. And I expect to come back in 5 hours and see that you've done it right. And boom, bada bing, and you've done it. You know what I mean? And that is what it's about. It's not about control on a communal level. Like there shouldn't be any control. It's all about self-control, self-leadership, and stepping up. Someone is not doing something right, and you know how to do it better. You just simply step up and say, "This is how you do it."
Yes.
And the other person should just be like, "Oh shit, I don't know as much as you do about this, so I'm going to shut the fuck up and listen to what you're saying."
Yeah, I think you definitely hit on some good points, and basically it's everyone brings something to the table and everybody has their part to play, and we all come together as a collective group. However, I would like to say we're going to start wrapping this up now. We kind of just basically want to have a 2-hour time slot. Of course, we're flexible on that, but given the this is the first show, I think that we'll try to keep true to form and start wrapping this up. I do want to say on behalf of Tiffany M, she apologizes to everybody here in the group chat here, and as well as the viewers and listeners on the outside. She apologizes. She has some tech issues and couldn't get back in. So we had a minor Scroogle casualty tonight. We're lucky because it could have been a lot worse. I'm surprised it went this smooth. But I would like everyone to give a chance to say some parting words, and then I'll finish it off. And being that we have a guest, I will let our guest first. Where can we find you, Robert?
Save the Silly Humans with Love and Intellect on Google+. I also have on Facebook, Save Humanity. You can find me as Robert J. Morris, both on Google+ and on Facebook. And yeah, website's still going down. We're trying to work on it, but epgn.net. Actually, sorry, my bad. SaveHumanity.epgn.net is still a work in progress, but go there, register, and we'll definitely notify you of any updates. We are trying to create a new platform, and yeah, take it away, guys. Yeah, thank you for letting me on.
You're very welcome. You're our first guest. Truth.
Well, one thing that I've been trying to incorporate in all the shows I've been involved with anyways, or the last couple of my shows on Access Undenied, which is on my channel. I'll just start with that. If most people know where to find me, but if not, I'm Truth Undenied. I have a YouTube. I also do a weekly show on Monday called Access Undenied. But back to my point, I've been noticing a lot of shows kind of end open, and I've been wanting to kind of try to push the habit of ending on a good note, ending on a closing note, wrapping it up, having a closure. And the one thing I'd like to say is, yes, we are under all sorts of manipulation, and we are controlled from all angles, so it seems. But tonight, you have heard different testimonies from all of us and all of our different angles and perspectives, and hopefully you guys kind of see what we're seeing. And I think that's more or less the message of everyone that everybody does. We all want you to see what we see, or to at least relate to it in some way. And basically on that note, I just want to say, thank you everyone out there who's listened in. I'm so glad that this is going down. I think we've got a great core team right here to work with. And the final thought is, we're gonna make it if we just keep pushing forward. And I believe that. Maybe I'm wrong, but we will, is my belief. And so everyone out there, we got to keep pushing on and use, like I've been saying over and over, use your own discernment and ask your own questions, and don't let anybody tell you what to think. And go ahead, Chad.
Yeah, perfect. I was going to say beware of those who have come to tell you what to believe, whether they be on TV or on the internet. Don't even listen to me. Use your own brain. Think for yourself. That's why you have it. You're smarter than they let you think you are. Once you realize that your opinions and your ideas and your perspective is just as valid as any other talking head out there, maybe even more so in some cases, then you'll feel more comfortable in saying what you see. And when we start to emanate what we really are instead of what they told us we are, that's when the world's going to change for the better. That's when it's going to be the world that we're dreaming of, rather than this nightmare we're living. I'm Chad Lilling. I appreciate all of you guys. Thanks for all listening with us, spending some time with us. Of course, hope you'll join us again next week. And I'm just glad to be a part of this with all of you guys. As you said, this is a good format, and I appreciate what all of you guys do. And hopefully we can make that difference that we're looking to see in the world.
Thank you, guys.
Word.
That was really, really cool, and definitely hitting to the heart. I just want to say a few words in parting. First, I want to thank everyone who's listening and viewing the show. Thank you very much for stopping by tonight. We look forward to continuing this process every Thursday at 8 o'clock Eastern. And just basically, if you look on the channel here, the Infinity Watch Live channel, I have a list of all the live channels that are going on during the week. Just a quick rundown. On Monday, we have Truth Undenied, which is Access Undenied. Is that correct, Truth? Access Undenied?
Correct.
Yes. On Tuesdays, we have Max Resistance with Up North for the 49th, Brian Roberts, and Swan Song. On Wednesdays, of course, we'll be doing it live with Jeff C. and crew. Thursdays is us from the trenches. And on Friday, you get a double whammy. First is Max Malone on Max Live or Max Malone's website. That's at 7 o'clock Eastern. And at 9 o'clock, you have Maddie D for Truth, the alternate channel. So you got 2 back-to-back shows. On Saturdays, of course, it's Save the Silly Humans with Love and Intellect with Robert J. Morris. And on Sundays, we have another back-to-back whammy. We have Latter Rain, an Event Skeptic, and the Christian Podcast for you spiritual brothers and sisters out there. And later on that evening, it's back with Robert J. Morris for Rapid Fire. And also, we have Giggity Goop, who does Truth Absolute, and that's kind of like whenever he feels like putting it up, he's all over the place with it. He's a great brother. And we also have Operation Scroogle, I believe it's called.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I do a quick shout out to Drew out there smoking that truth, man. He's been trooping it out, doing it hardcore, and I think it's great what you guys are doing. Keep it going. Always have open hangout open. That's a great idea.
And I couldn't thank the man more because he's basically trying to carry the torch until I come back on Saturday. So you know what, Drew, special shout out to you, brother. Smoking that truth and keeping that shit going, man. Love you. Hey, by the way, Infinity, you did forget one show. I want to just tell people that Dirty Laundry is still going.
Oh,
yeah.
I'm so sorry about that.
Saturday. All about the girls, baby. All about the girls.
I am so sorry, ladies. You guys are going to kill me. I am so sorry, ladies. Of course, Dirty Laundry with Janelle Mary as your host. That's an awesome show for the women digging the dirt and talking the woman talk. Can't miss that either. That's at 4 o'clock, right?
I believe so. I don't know. Times may change, and they may, but 4 o'clock, I believe. 4 o'clock Mountain Time, by the way.
Great.
So that would be 6 o'clock Eastern, 5 Central, and 3 o'clock Pacific.
Gotcha.
To be specific.
And if there's anybody out there that has a show that I missed or have overlooked, please let me know. I'll add you to my featured live shows on our channel, and I will definitely promote your show as well. So, again, I want to thank everybody for coming in on this show, my other host, and thank you, Robert J., as our first guest. And once again,
I'd like to come back. I'd like to come back and talk about these things anytime you would welcome me. I'm here.
And just to give a brief little hint for our next show, it's a possibility that we actually might have a hip-hop artist on who is part of the Truth movement, and he spits that truth fire. So hopefully we can get that popping, and we will have a very interesting show. Again, we're going to have a very dynamic show of different things, and we kind of like to catch people off guard a little bit every now and then. Well, anyway,
can I make a small announcement?
Please do.
I just want everybody to know that have watched the last 9 episodes of Save the Silly Humans on Saturday nights. The format is going to completely change, guys. We are going totally radio. We're going to be playing independent music, truther music. So I would like for anyone who wants their music to be played, send me a link either privately to rob.morris74@gmail.com or rjm@echelonpublishers.com, and let me know. Send me links. We want to build up a battery of music. We're going totally radio for Saturday nights coming up. So
Cool.
Stand by for that, guys.
Very cool. Well, thank you, Robert J., for that. And once again, everyone, thanks for coming by. And and definitely we look forward to seeing you next week live from the trenches. Good night, everyone.
Peace.